This is No BS Job Search Advice Radio, episode 2902. I'm your host, Jeff Altman, the Big Game Hunter, and welcome! As I promised yesterday, I'm bringing back one of my Career Coach Office Hours shows, and this is from 2021. I actually recorded this on a day that my wife was returning from taking care of her sister, who was a long-haul COVID patient. My wife was with her for more than 6 months, trying to help her. And eventually, we were able to figure out how to get her sister care that, since that time, has really brought her back to life. So I'm a little exuberant at the beginning of the show because this is the day I'm seeing my wife for the first time in 6 months. So if it comes through, that's why. So again, this is from the archives. I answer a number of different questions. Over the weekend, I'm going to do as I always do, some short shows. And next week, it'll be what I typically do. So I hope you find this helpful. Also want to encourage you, come over to jobsearch.community. Become an insider. In doing that, you get access to all my video courses, books, and guides, plus coaching from me. And I have a number of different levels of service. Pick one. I don't care if it's the cheapest one. Pick one so I can help you more. And I'll be back in just one moment. If I'm applying for a job where I'd be using both artistic and administrative experience, and I usually have different resumes for both, since the jobs I apply to are usually either one or the other, do I submit the artist and regular resume, or do I condense them somehow? No one wants to read two resumes because they won't believe you. So what you need to do is consolidate, and to keep the resume to 2 pages tops. And in doing so, you want to look at the job description and make the fit obvious to a reader within 1 page down of your resume. So no one's going to want to look for it on page 2. That's more the curiosity about your career progression than anything. And if you stick it onto page 2, no one will really pay attention to it. And since you're applying for a job, as opposed to networking to get the job, which is clearly preferable, or being introduced by someone who works at the organization, which is clearly preferable. Once you're applying for a job, you need to make the fit obvious within 1 page down, because otherwise the applicant tracking system may not detect the experience. These systems have a bias toward currency, meaning more recent experience. And thus, if it's too far down, they're not interested. Again, also, if you're applying for a job, make page 1 of the resume your cover letter. And thus what you're able to do, and this is if you're applying through an applicant tracking system, thus what you're able to do in making it page 1 is in fact stuff the resume with keywords, right? I'm forwarding my resume to you for the position of such and such. Let me show you how my background fits with the role. Flush left, you list the skills that they're looking for and look at the functionality and list the ones that you've performed, and then how long and how recently is flush right. So to the left is the skills that they're looking for, the requirements of the position, the functionality of the job, all of which are the ones that you've done. Skip the ones that you haven't. And then flush right is how long and how recently. And thus what you're doing is tricking the applicant tracking system because you're keyword stuffing the document. So that's question number 1. Oh, I love this one. If I applied for a job and my recruiter, I'm going to come to that phrase in a second, also applied for the same position on my behalf, does it look bad? Should I withdraw or ask my recruiter to withdraw? So let me first deal with the my recruiter phrase. Are you paying them anything? Because that's the only way that they become your recruiter. Institutions pay recruiters to fill jobs. They are not your recruiter. They are their recruiter. They are recruiting to fill a position. Coincidentally, they are helping you to get a job. So don't start to fall for the, hi, Helena, how are you? I hope I pronounced your first name correctly. Don't fall for the language of my recruiter, because it's not true. They're not your recruiter. And, again, with regard to whether you should withdraw or someone else, or they should withdraw, neither of you should withdraw. It doesn't look badly. If anything, the firm has systems in place to be able to determine who they should respond to, which is most likely going to be you, because that way they avoid the fee. Don't ask the recruiter to withdraw, because perhaps their resume arrived first, or they have a special relationship with the firm, and the withdrawal argument looks weird. So very simply, keep it simple. Let the firm decide. Now, Helena put in a message, as a manager, I'm losing individual contributors, or I'm not quite sure the language. Individual hard skills. I'm afraid I know if I continue developing myself as a manager or go back. Could you try reworking the language on that one for me, please? It's not quite clear what. I have the idea that what you want to know is whether you're better off being an individual contributor or manager, but I'm not sure. Could you try asking the question again a little bit differently? And I'm going to go on to the next one and circle back to you, okay? So in the meantime, the next question I have is number 3. This was asked of me, and I have no idea why they languaged it this way. What are your experiences of LinkedIn? Have you been able to secure employment or make useful contacts? So I want to start by saying everything works in job search. It just never works as frequently as we want. We want it to work every single time, but it doesn't. It just doesn't. So I like LinkedIn. As a matter of fact, I was among the first 10,000 people on LinkedIn. So I go back almost to the beginning on the platform. And I like it for a variety of reasons. Number one, it's a database of 740,000 people currently. And thus, you have access to a lot of folks. And even if you can't reach them, because one of the dirty little secrets of LinkedIn is that a lot of people don't respond to messages through messaging unless they're actively looking for work. And thus, or not only that, but unless they're on the platform. So messages may stack up until they get to them, and they tend to only look when they're job hunting, so they don't always log on. So some people have their profile configured so they're not being messaged when someone is messaging them, and thus it winds up being one of those problems that people are trying to reach out to folks, and as a result, unless they're there online, they don't hear back. So what do I like about it? I can create a brand for myself, and that's what I've done. People know me from my job search experience. Again, they've read my content. I share information. I help people. I network with people. They read, watch, or listen to information I share. And I'm also able to participate in groups, write on the platform, share content from other places onto it. There's a lot that creates the impression of me as being different. And for myself, my own history is one that I started doing a lot of content creation because I worked in recruiting for a lot of years. And thus, the issue for me became everyone hates recruiters. And I wasn't like one of those people. So I wanted to stand out and show people what I knew and what I could do. And I started to use LinkedIn to share information. Now, as a coach, there's a similar problem because no one knows how to choose a coach. And thus, it allows me to demonstrate my capabilities and knowledge. And doing it live now using live streaming, it's even better. So the result winds up being it's a way that you can stand out from others. Your profile has to be keyword rich in order to distinguish yourself. So think in terms of, if you were looking for someone like you, what would you want them to know about you in order to find you? So that's the best way to think of it, as a branding tool. So back to the question in chat. As a team manager, I'm more focused in organizational and strategic tasks, and is not hands-on now. So she's now catching up on new technologies and trends, and she's afraid. So I'm going to assume that you don't want to be an individual contributor necessarily, because that doesn't pay as well as being a manager, but you want to be a manager who can also go into the weeds. And once I'm seeing that you're a technologist historically, you're right. You should get the technology underpinnings back underneath you, because otherwise you wind up being in one of those no man's lands or no woman lands where, if you're non-technical, firms wonder how effective you can be in managing people who are technical, since you don't know it well enough. So yes, you should go back, pick up the technical underpinnings, because that'll also help you from a strategic standpoint to understand capabilities. So yes, big picture is important, but in technology in particular, being able to dive into the weeds and have the in-depth knowledge and capabilities is important too. It's more work for you, absolutely, but don't pull back from it. You got to do it, because otherwise technology will pass you by. You'll be a has-been much sooner than you should be. I hope that's what you were looking for. And if you have questions, you can also come back to me through my website, schedule a time for a discovery call. Let's see if I can help you in that way. Let me go to the next question. This person wants to know the answer to, how many windows are there in your city? I just want to put a bullet in my head when firms ask questions like this. All they really want is your ability to hypothesize, come up with a math formula for the question, the assumptions that you're making here, and in doing so, be somewhat logical. You have to say it out loud so they can follow your thinking. So, for example, the classic question was, how many manhole covers are there in New York? Well, assuming that there are 3 manholes on every city block, and you kind of walk them through the process of deducing the answer, and thus the number you come up with doesn't have to be perfect, but be prepared to argue it. Do you have a different assumption that you're making? Because I see 3 manhole, you're saying 4? Okay, let's do the math that way. And you kind of, in a non-defensive way, respond and don't feel threatened. I hate these questions about manhole covers. The typical brain teaser question that shows up from time to time. They are awful. How early should you be for an interview? What are the benefits of reaching an interview early? So let me start with the second part of this. So we're talking about an in-person interview. I can do this with video too, but in-person is more obvious. With an in-person interview, arriving early allows you to do a couple of things. Number one is set your mind so that you're focused on performing. Number two is weather is a variable. So if you're in the lobby of a building or if you're driving, what you're able to do is to warm your hands if it's cold out, or dry them and cool off if it's hot out, so that you're not distracted by how you physically feel. And that's part of setting your mental attitude. You do that in the lobby. You arrive to the interview a few minutes early, like 5. And that allows them unless you're instructed differently. It gives you enough time to complete an application if that's what they're going to have you do. Wait there, get a sense of your environment and get focused. So again, when the person comes out and greets you, you're mentally ready. Don't distract yourself by getting so immersed in your phone or tablet that you're not paying attention to someone coming out to greet you, with the result being that if you're too distracted when you hear your name, like you're discombobulated. Years ago, I was visiting a client at a bank when I was still doing recruiting, and the way the settee was set up, it was like catacornered. And Helena, I'll come back to you in 1 second. It was catacornered, and I knew and there were doors on either side of the reception, and I knew where my person was coming from, and this person had their back to one of the doors, and thus when the name was announced, they were kind of thrown and wound up having difficulty pulling themselves together for the handshake and the eye contact and all that sort of stuff that you start when you're meeting someone. So the result winds up being, be prepared and ready to accept someone coming out to greet you so that you're not thrown, because it's the first 10 to 15 seconds of the interview or the period of time before where they're making a decision about whether to pay attention to the interview. If you come across as being nervous or uncomfortable, not a good look, is it? From your standpoint, when you're when they're calling your name, you want to be in the situation where you can size them up as a person and deal with them as you presuppose them to be, just as you would in a social situation, right? And in social situations, someone introduces you, you take a look at them, you immediately size them up. Like I was at someone's home last night, they were having a fundraiser for charity that they're involved with. I was introduced to 2 or 3 people there, one of whom I spent some time chatting with. And the host came over to me and said, "You know who that guy is?" And I said, "Yeah, I figured it out pretty quickly. His last name was unusual." So I knew the business he had owned for a lot of years, the national in scope. We had a great time talking. But, unless you size people up and deal with them in a way that you're comfortable with, they're uncomfortable with you. And I'll just simply say, focus on performing, focus on executing. Don't get distracted by your phone. Now, if this is a video interview, just arrive to the video interview a minute or 2 early. So this way, when it opens up, you're ready for them and they're not waiting for you. Okay? Video, 2 minutes, in person, 5, and perform. Now, coming back, is an MBA worth it? I really recommend Jeff. Thank you. 9 months ago, I had to prepare an interview for a first-time manager job. It went very good. I got the job. So is an MBA worth it? Thank you, Helena. I appreciate the compliment. I'm going to use that as part of a quote that I share with people. So I'll just simply say, thank you. Is an MBA worth it? It depends. I'll just say, in some roles it helps. In some roles it removes an excuse. Network with people who do the kind of work you're aspiring to so that you can get their input. And this is true of any degree or anything that you're unsure about, because I don't know enough about your work or your aspirations to really guide you here. But there are people who do. So network to some folks on LinkedIn who are doing the work that you want to be doing in the next few years. Notice their backgrounds. You can message them and ask about it, or you can just ask, can I get 5 minutes to ask you 2 or 3 questions? Either any way works. Again, hope that helps. And I'm glad I was able to help you get a job. I'm doing a series now, by the way, for first-time managers on YouTube. So you might want to subscribe to my channel there as well. Let's see now. I think I've got one more questions. Oh, yeah. How do you have a good LinkedIn profile and use it to boost your career? I kind of covered that in the previous question about LinkedIn, but let me deal with the thing specifically about a profile. On the other side of LinkedIn, LinkedIn sells information to recruiters and search firms to allow them to find people. And those recruiters can be at a company, they can be third-party recruiters or executive search firms. And they're doing keyword searches in order to find people. In addition to finding them through your profile, they're looking for secondary information that allows you to stand out in some way. So you have ways that you can include articles. You can comment on other people's posts. You can write articles, share video, stories. Stories dies too quickly, really, for it to have long-term impact unless people notice you. To build your network of relationships and to cultivate those so at the time of your next job search, you get help. There's a lot of ways that a profile becomes a magnet for those who are looking for people. And that's really what you have to think about. How to create a magnetic profile so that in this way others are reaching out to you. See, the mistake people make with career management is they only think of, okay, I'm looking for a job. I've got to find a job. Let me go find a job. As opposed to the preference, which is jobs come to you. Because if you can create an image or a brand for yourself that allows you to be the person, the go-to person that others want to find for your line of work, that's what you want to do. That's the home run. So that opportunity arrives in your lap. I remember my first coaching client came to me because someone in Italy had seen my comments about things, seen a number of my videos and listened to a few podcasts, and developed an affinity for my way of thinking. Referred a friend of his in the United States to me, who I helped land a significant role with a major entertainment firm. And it was a great experience for me to see the effect of the brand I built and how it transitioned into coaching. For you, no matter what kind of work you do, LinkedIn allows you to create that image for yourself. So that's today's show. I hope you found it helpful. If you did, visit jobsearch.community. There's a lot more there that'll help you. In the meantime, I'll be back with more tomorrow. Have a terrific day and be great.